Hello and welcome to the Dragon Scale Inn. Today we're doing our Tempest Cup tournament live from Jacksonville, Florida. These are our highlights from the Jacksonville Elite Raiders tournament at Jacksonville Arboretum. You see here round one, match one. We start with our Abomasnow versus Scupra's Lapras. Abomasnow does a ton of work. That Razor Leaf puts it in on him. We go ahead and eat that Ice Beam and knock the Lapras out. He brings his Quagsire in, which also just gets demolished with Razor Leaf. In both of these matchups, the Abomasnow was the best lead possible. He does take out two Pokemon for his slot, so he has put in his time and effort, and Skarmory comes in and finishes him out. We then throw in our Lantern, which is our counter for the Skarmory, and he does some work. Gets that Charge Beam off, doing super effective damage there. We use that shield to keep hit point advantage in the match and not to let our Lantern fall down before the Skarmory does. We go ahead and get our Thunderbolt here, and he does shield, so we're even on shields now. And yet he continues with this Sky attack, charges up super fast on his Skarmory and pushes us into zero shields. We get this Thunderbolt off, and he eats that one to send his Skarmory to the bench. And then he will finish that match off. We seem to have the right counters just the entire time in the first round. The second round does not go quite as well as that. Scooper comes back, and we start with Abomasnow versus Quagsire, which for us is a great lead. That's why I went back. His team seemed to be pretty mud boy and water heavy, so I was confident leading with the Abomasnow. As soon as he saw the Abomasnow out, he switched out to his Skarmory. So I think we only got like one Razor Leaf off, and Skarmory is a bad matchup for you as an Abomasnow. You do not want to be in the ring with a Skarmory as an Abomasnow. The flying attacks just do work. It forced me to put a shield out. I was trying to gain as much damage on the Skarmory as possible and keep the Razor Leaf pressure. I do get this Outrage in, but I think he shields. No, he takes it. Yeah, so we get that Outrage off, but it's not very effective. The dragon damage against the Skarmory is not really that great. But Abomasnow goes down, we bring our Lantern in and finish the Skarmory off. But before we can do that, he does force us to use another shield. So now we are going into the match with no shields, and he has shield advantage. Even though we have the hit point advantage right now, he does have the shield advantage, and that, as we all know, shield advantage can turn the tide of battle really, really fast. So Lantern finishes the Skarmory off, and then he sends out the Quagsire, which is like Lantern's nightmare. I know that this is a bad match for me. I'm going to try to get off as much damage as possible and hope that I can finish him. I know that I've got to get through his bench, but I also know that one of his other Pokemon is severely injured. So I think that if I can just get rid of the Quagsire, that maybe I can work it through and get to the end of his bench. And I bring my Quagsire out in a mirror match where his Quagsire is down on the hit point end, but I do not have shields left, so these Stone Edges are going to hurt me a lot. And again, the Stone Edge is just going to do the work. This whole match, just do the work. It's pretty ridiculous. He shields that, which would have put him out, but it gives him enough time to get one of these off and finish my Quagsire, which, you know, trading Quags is one thing. I guess in some matchups it's not horrible, but as my last Pokemon, that's not what I wanted to do. So the shield use there really set me back. But we come back in match 3. Scoopra changes his tact. I change my tact, and it seems like we're kind of reversed here. Now I see his Abomasnow. I know that my Lantern is not going to work, so I hit for a few hits to get a little bit of charge advance, and then I switch out to my Skarmory. He then switches. No, I switched to my Altaria. Yeah, so I switched to my Altaria. He switches to his Skarmory. It's a bad matchup for me, but I'm stuck in the match now because I've got the transfer timer. So my thought is just to do as much damage as I can while I'm stuck here. And in my head, I thought, if I can just, I'll use the shields, I'll keep him in, I'll do the damage, we'll burn through his shields, and eventually we'll be able to pull through. But he does the work and gets my Altaria down. I go with the Lantern against Skarmory is a good match. I know that he'll finish the job off, but the Skarmory's already done the work that it needed to do. Um, so he forces me to shield against the Sky attack. And we get off a Thunderbolt here to finish the Skarmory off. And then he brings in his Quagsire, which in this matchup is really bad for us. We don't want to see that. But we also know that the last thing I have is a Quagsire. And the mirror match is not great for us, but it's not horrible either. But I know that he's still got another Pokemon left. So it's now my Quagsire versus his sort of injured Quagsire and another broken Pokemon. So I know that my Quagsire in the long run just doesn't have it. There's no shields left. He's still got a shield on his Quagsire. I'm in a losing situation here. So I've pretty much given over to the fact that this match is going to go badly for me. Again, if I hadn't shielded the Altaria in that match, maybe I would have been able to do something different in this Quagsire match. Quagsire with 2 shields actually wins a lot of matchups, so it wouldn't have been completely unheard of if I had pulled off the win with the Quagsire with 2 shields. But I didn't have the shields because I got pinned with the Skarmory against my Altaria, and it is what it is. Round 2 is against WTF Family. We have fought in a couple of other tournaments before. She came with a really, really odd lineup on this match. There was a lot of electric. She had Plusle, she had Raikou. She has a really good Altaria. She also has an Alolan Sandslash on her team. Everything, I think there was a Gliscor. Everything was super off meta except for the Altaria, and I know that her Altaria is a 98% defense spec, so I was kind of worried about that. But I saw a lot of electric, so I felt confident going with the Quagsire and the Whiscash, just to kind of do a lot of damage work up front and really set the match off. Looking at her lineup, I got real worried about it, because it definitely wasn't the lineup I expected to see, and it kind of threw me off. But as I looked at it a little more, I realized that it wasn't as off meta as I thought it was in the typings, and I was prepared for these kinds of Pokemon, so it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. In fact, it was the easiest match I had of the day. Nothing against WTF Family, just the lineup that I had was designed to eat the things that they brought to the tournament. I'm sure that she had a lot of fun with the tournament. Her lineup seemed really, really crazy, and the reactions that I'm sure she got from it were priceless, if nothing else. She is a great battler. She has beat me before in tournaments, but on this particular day, we had the right answers for her group, and knowing that her Altaria was actually really good Altaria, I knew I had to bring the Skarmory to counteract the Altaria, because I figured she would probably lean pretty heavy on it, and I was correct. So Skarmory finishes off the Altaria to secure match number 1 for us, and we move into match number 2 in round 2. So here again, like, I knew that her lineup was very odd, and I was just trying to do things that I knew would counter. She was super electric heavy, so I went with Quagsire as my lead. She switches out her Plusle for her Altaria, which is definitely not the matchup I want, but my Altaria has Dragon Breath, where her Altaria has Aerial Ace. So I knew that if I switched into my Altaria, I could do a ton of damage as the Dragon move against the Dragon type, and that she would fall behind in the hit point curve. So I went ahead and did that. And of course, as you can see, it paid off for us. We did knock down her Altaria fairly handedly, and still had enough left for my Altaria to go into the next match against her. What is this? Her Raikou. Again, Dragon Pulse, Dragon Breath, Sky Attack on this Altaria is an electric smasher. The Dragon Breath alone just does so much damage so fast that the Raikou just couldn't hold up to it, and we handed that Raikou a loss pretty fast. Also, as a testament to the bulk of this Altaria, the Plusle here is super fast at gaining energy and dealing damage. I know that in our tournament or our test cup last December, Plusles were all over the place. Anything that's had electric tied to it or been available, the Spark Discharge Plusles have just wrecked a ton of people. But today I had exactly the answers for an odd matchup lineup, and we went in and took care of business. We handed 1 and 2, and now we're into the third round. By far the hardest round of the day for me. This first match went really, really well. We seemed to have all of the answers, and while I misjudged the lead a little, I did have the right response for it, and we moved in and traded from our Abomasnow to our Altaria. We shield against that Leaf Blade, just in case. I wasn't sure what it had, and then he switches just in time for... no, he doesn't switch. He shields the Sky Attack, and yeah, the Tropius is just taking so much damage from the Dragon Breath. He gets the Steelix in just in time for the Sky Attack to come, so his Tropius is heavily damaged and it's in the back. So we know that. Knowing that I have to deal with that later, and it probably has charge, I know that I want my Altaria to try and do as much damage to the Steelix as possible. I don't know for a fact that I have a great counter for a Steelix, but I know that my Whiscash can do work. However, it's my last Pokemon. This is a bad situation to be in against a Steelix and having your last full health Pokemon going out onto the field. I know that Whiscash can win the match against Steelix, but then not having the weapon for anything else on the board later is very scary. Because in this matchup, especially with shields going, it's kind of a trade Steelix for Whiscash. Whiscash might come out on the winning end of the fight, but he is worse for wear for it. And it's never good to come out of the end of a fight with a bunch of lumps on your head. And that's exactly what he does coming into this Lantern. He's got a ton of lumps on his head. He does manage to make off this Mud Bomb in time, which I was super happy to do some damage to the Lantern. But the Lantern's Charge Beam is just too much to really take for too long. And while I do get off another Mud Bomb here, or I was about to get off another Mud Bomb, he gets me with that Lightning Bolt and fries me right out of the game. Now my Abomasnow's in. He does finish off the Lantern because this matchup is just foregone conclusion. Razor Leaf eats a Lantern like nobody's business, and then he brings out the Tropius. Now I assume because the Tropius is very, very busted that I'll be able to get some damage off. However, that charge move just wrecks me. That right there was the change point. My Altaria does not have enough health left to take care of this Tropius because Razor Leaf is a damage machine. I do pull the win, but it is super close. Super close. Nowhere near as close as I would have liked it to have been. So we do pull the win in round 1, or round 3, match 1. We move into match 2. We come both with our lanterns. It's a lantern mirror match. And while I was perfectly content to have a trading lanterns mirror match, he got a little impatient in the beginning and realized that this was going to be a slow rolling fight if we didn't do something about it. So I get that Thunderbolt. He tanks it because it's a Thunderbolt. And then he switches out to his Whiscash. Now Whiscash does solid work against Lantern. I go for the Thunderbolt, and he shields, so I've at least baited his shield off. Gives us health advantage and shield advantage. But then he gets those mud shots, or the mud bombs just start rolling in, and this is where the battle changes. The ability for Whiscash to spam mud bombs is ridiculous. You either soak them or you don't, and if you don't, he's got 3 more waiting after you've burnt both of your shields. It's how he functions. So not taking very much damage from my electric moves, and not really having an answer for a Whiscash. Otherwise, I just try to do as much damage as possible and end the fight with Whiscash in the most amicable fashion that I can. At least for me, which is really just code for Lantern gets wrecked a lot. That Blizzard puts me off the board, and then I move into my Abomasnow. Now we know that Abomasnow wrecks the Mud Boys, so it's no question there that Abomasnow beats the Whiscash. But then he brings Celio, and Celio is rough for Abomasnow. Powder Snow is a really rough move, which, while is resisted, Abomasnow does not resist Water Gun. So a Water Gun Celio does a lot of work against Abomasnow. You see there that you see the Lantern come in, or the Quagsire come in for the Abomasnow on my side. Finishes the Lantern off, but does take some damage in the process. It's not a cheap victory for him, and because of that loss of hit points, I'm behind on the match when he brings this in. I go for the Earthquake on the Celio, and he still has that shield left. It changes the face of the combat. Even though his Celio's got such little hit points, I'm not working with a whole lot myself, and those body slams come a whole lot faster than Stone Edges. So he does end up getting the body slams off and dealing enough fast move damage to take me out in round 2. So starting into round 3, we're 1-1. This is the longest match we've had, and it's the end of a very long day where arms are super tired. Quagsire versus Celio is what hits the board, and I know for a fact that I am not in the right position. Quagsire is going to get worked by Celio's body slams, or I'm going to use all my shields up, one way or the other. And he just presses for it. He knows that this is his best option, is to push so much body slam damage that I either waste my shields or get wrecked. So I go straight into a trade for a much better matchup. I do block the body slam because I need to keep my hit points as high as possible so that Razor Leaf has time to work on Celio. It does do a lot of damage every time it hits, and Celio will fall to it, but it still takes time to take Celio out, just because of the massive bulk that he has. Eventually, Abomasnow does take him out with Razor Leaf damage, and he does come back into the fight with his Lantern. Now, Lantern is a rough go for his Lantern is a rough go for Abomasnow. Not that it does super effective damage, but it does a lot of it in a short amount of time. Oof. And without any shields, Abomasnow is pretty open to just taking damage. Those Thunderbolts really, really hurt. So I switch into my Quagsire against Lantern because I know that that's a good match, and I try to do as much damage as possible. Stone Edge comes off right away. But he blocks, so at least we baited that off. And I'm still feeling pretty confident in my position. While I don't have any shields left, we're both down a Pokemon and he's about to be down 2. And then he hits me with that Thunderbolt, and it really puts me in a bad spot where I now have this Stone Edge and does finish Lantern, but as he comes out with Steelix, I don't really have an answer for Steelix. My last Pokemon is a Lantern. And while technically Lantern can win matchups against Steelix, he needs shields to do it. Steelix is so bulky, and crunches happen so fast that it just overwhelms the Lantern, who should be super effective against the Steelix with his Thunderbolts, but he isn't. It's not very effective. So there isn't enough output on Lantern to end the Steelix before the fight happens. So as I'm sitting here in the last moments of the last fight in the last round, just knowing that I don't have enough output to keep the Steelix down. And that, my friends, is how we end my Tempest Cup.